Well, hello, White Sox fans. Welcome to another edition of Future Sox Live. My name is Ian Eskridge. I am joined tonight by Mr. James Fox. How you doing, James?
Good, sir. One day delayed because of the Super Bowl. I think this makes a little bit more sense than going on the air last night.
Yeah, a little bit. And it wasn't a, it was sort of exciting game.
Yeah, the end was cool. Like the fourth quarter in OT was awesome.
Yeah, the first three quarters were a little slow.
And I love at the end when nobody knew the rules or like what was happening. Like people just like, why are they lollygagging? They're gonna run out of time. And it's like, yeah, no, it wasn't really explained very well that it's just like a new game basically.
Yeah, that was not well done. I mean, when it's different in one game from most of the rest. It's kind of weird. So this week lists. We've got Kiley McDaniel put out his top 100. He put out his team top 28s. We have Keith Law with his top 100. He has not done his White Sox list yet, which I'm looking forward to seeing. And we also have the NRIs, which we'll get to a little bit later. Let's just hop in on the Kiley McDaniel top 100.
Mm-hmm.
He was an early adopter of the Colson Montgomery way up top in the list. And this year we have him at number 8. And he mentions that he might be a third baseman, but he's fine where he's at. They just let him do his thing, and he comped him to Gunnar Henderson. Your thoughts on his placement?
Yeah, so I mean, Kylie's always like kind of been the high guy on Colson, and he kind of just like talked about how stupid the whole thing was, like that he was a 19-year-old. Now he doesn't think it's dumb in every case, right? And I think even like recently he was on with Connor McKnight this weekend, and he brought up like Blake Rutherford. It's like a good example of an overaged California prep kid who scouts have seen for 3 years, chewing up high schoolers, that didn't really project very well. But like Colson wasn't that. He was late onto the prospect circuit for baseball. He was a basketball kid. He played football. He played multiple sports. So, you know, 19 is 19, right? But he was like a young 19 with like a lot of growth still, and he played in Indiana. So, yeah, that was one it looks like the White Sox got right. Kiley liked him even then. I remember like on ESPN, like him talking about that pick that night, thinking it was a good one. And if if you look at all of these lists, Colson's right in there with that shortstop crop from that draft that, everybody always kind of talks about. Your Lawler and Marcelo Meyer and like all those guys. And, some prospect guys have him the highest of the bunch. So I think that the one other really interesting thing about him ranking 8th, if you look at Kylie's list, there's a good chance that like 2 months from now, Colson's like 1 or 2 because all those guys are going to be in the majors this year.
Yeah, we'll get to the other list, which has a little bit of a varying opinion, but we'll move along. Noah Schultz, he has at 57, calls him a left-handed Gumby. Now, in my personal opinion, if I looked at Randy Johnson, that I would say was more like a Gumby type guy.
Mm-hmm.
To me, Noah Schultz looks like a normal guy, just really, really massive. But he doesn't have a bad word to say about Noah Schultz other than the fact that he didn't pitch a whole lot last year and that he needs to build an innings base this year. I assume that at 57 that you think that that's a reasonable spot.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have said like similar. I know Jim Callis has been kind of all over the place recently on podcasts and stuff, just kind of talking about if like Noah Schultz is the best left-handed pitching prospect in baseball at midseason, like none of us should be surprised. Like it's all about innings. I mean, he's got to get to 70 innings or so, but I don't really think anybody cares like whether he gets hit, where he pitches, any of that. It's just like cuz he's going to be filthy wherever he is. He just needs that innings load. So yeah, pretty interesting. The two times the White Sox have decided to splurge on a prep guy in the first round, it's seemingly working out okay for them lately.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. I mean, I can't. I don't know. Every time I've seen the kid pitch, he's been amazing. So I'm very happy at where he's ranked, given the fact that he's only thrown 27 innings in the in his pro career so far. What's up, 904? How you doing? Yeah. So coming in at 90, we have a guy who's kind of been making his way onto these lists this year. Finally, we kind of, at least as White Sox fans, kind of all felt that he was a little underappreciated. But Brian Ramos makes his way in at 90, and Kiley says that he's well-rounded and he's a little above average at everything. And I can see where you would, where that would be your, assessment of what he does. It's not like, I would say probably his power is probably his calling card, but he plays a good defense and he does have a decent bat to ball. Your thoughts on Ramos?
Yeah, I think he's always been young for the level. That's good. I do think more power will come. I mean, look, the biggest knock has been he's hurt like a lot, like quite often, and it's nothing bad. He gets nagging injuries and he misses time, and hopefully he gets to Charlotte this year pretty quickly, and then I would say that we'll see him if he does good in the minors, just because he's on the 40 man, and I guess the only other negative is that he hits right-handed, right? And it's not that big of a deal, but that's like the one thing. But yeah, I mean, he's worked his way up onto this list. We'll get into Keith Laws, but he's on that one. He's been on some other ones in the past. I think not. He's never been on at Pipeline, but he's been right in this range, like in the system. My guess is just people getting some eyes on him in the Arizona Fall League might have changed some opinions a little bit.
Yeah, I asked Callis last year about why Ramos hadn't made it on the top 100 yet. So we got a question here. It says, is there anything that he absolutely excels at that will project as his way to make it up to the majors? I mean, I would have to say it would probably be a combination of defense and power, huh?
Yeah, he's got power, and I think he doesn't K a ton, and he walks like enough. I think he like got his walk rate up over 10% in the minors last year, which was a big thing, right? He doesn't have the flaws of some personal favorites, right? Lenny and Sosa and Jose Rodriguez, but even like seeing those guys come through, we always kind of said, look, like if the approach doesn't change, like this could be ugly, and we're seeing it with prospect rankings. And I'm going off the board a little bit here, but like with Jose Rodriguez, I mean, he's just so aggressive that I thought like eventually he's gonna either have to change or he might be a utility guy, because you just can't walk 3% of the time if you're not like absolutely like hitting a bunch of tanks. So yeah, I think that's the difference with Ramos here. I mean, Ramos is right around like a 12% walk rate. I think his strikeout rate's under 20%. And he does have 25 to 30 home run power potential. He just, he's missed some time. So he's an interesting one to follow. I think there is a debate for sure, like 3, 4, 5 in this system to me. And everybody kind of has these guys differently.
Yeah. I think for Popeye specifically, I'm really interested to see, and we've got our in the first the first week of March, we've got our top 30s coming out.
That's the plan.
Yeah, so we'll see about that. But everybody's got Popeye at different spots in their top 30s that have him in the list. Teaser. But this is going to be like the first year in 2 years that he's starting healthy in a season. So, Lord willing, of course. But I'm really excited to see what he can bring from the beginning of a season if he is healthy right from the get-go, because, we've seen like a back thing or knee thing. I can't remember what it was 2 years ago, but then he broke
his hamate. Yeah. So there's just a bunch of stuff. And like I said a minute ago, he's on the 40. And if you look at the White Sox right now, Nicky Lopez is very likely the starter at second, I would think, but he hits left-handed. So there's definitely a spot for a right-handed hitting infielder that can play second or short. And you have Sosa, you have Rodriguez, You have Braden Shoemake for some reason on the 40 man. And then, you brought back Danny Mendick as an NRI, which we'll get to, and Remelard's around. So, there's just like a lot of options there. But Rodriguez is on the 40, and he's probably going to stay on the 40 because, like I don't really, think that they'll dump him unless they traded him for something. So,
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, look, he has I hate, you'll learn this, Ian, if you haven't really listened to me a ton. I hate spring training battles. I despise it because, like, I think, like, the stats and stuff are meaningless. Like, winning a job in spring training to me is absolute nonsense. But if he hits, like, 480 or something, like, maybe he's their utility guy. Who knows?
Yeah, I'd say probably the only way that I actually think spring training battles matter is if you have two guys that you don't expect to do anything fighting for a position that you just need filled. And
Right. Yeah.
I don't see that being the case so much, especially with the White Sox, because there have always been positions that are open that they just need to fill. So it's kind of like a big nothing burger when it comes to spring training battles because you're just kind of apathetic about it, altogether anyway. So, because they don't want to sign anybody. So here's a change from Kiley McDaniel is that he lists in along with his top 28 players, he also ranked the teams by quality and depth. And he said this year that the White Sox are 26th in quality of depth, which is a change from last year. I can't remember what it was last year, but I want to say it was more middle of the road than that. What do you think changed? Do you think anything changed?
Yeah, I mean, probably. I mean, if you've heard like his reaction to the two trades that were made, right? I think he thought those were like a little bit puzzling. He didn't really understand them. He's also questioned like the Chris Getz hire a little bit. And look, like we did too. I mean, I think he made a comment to Sox Machine, just that like the prerequisite for being the GM was like knowing Jerry Reinsdorf for 10 years, and that's not what he would do. But I mean, yeah, like we know that. Like we know exactly what this is, right? And we've kind of talked about how like I don't know that this necessarily means that Chris Getz is going to be bad at this, but yeah, I mean it is what it is, right? So if you can't get past that, then you're going to have to just wait and see what they do, right? But something I find interesting, so Kiley has their system ranked 20th, like just the system alone. But after the trade deadline where Rick and Kenny were here and they made all these trades, like Kiley was on ESPN 1000 locally and kind of said that he liked the trades and that he ranked the system like right around 12th. So it's all the same guys. Like something happened like between midseason and now where he dropped them from 12 to 20. So, I found that a little bit interesting. Even like considering, some of the write ups and where he has guys. Like we talked about Ramos. He also listed Caro at 105. So you have four of the top 105. Like it, usually you're a little better than bottom third, but who knows? It's his list for a reason. He's worked in front offices, so
Yeah.
I always enjoy his write ups.
Yeah, no, usually I find them to be, very well done. However, I can't see how Christian Mena being traded would drop you 8 spots because that's literally the only thing that's changed in the farm system. So that's kind of strange. Are there any surprises to you? I don't want to give away the intellectual property of Kiley McDaniel, but were there any in the numbered order that you thought that were a little bit off?
So, I mean, the one thing I'll say is like I don't know why Dominic Fletcher is listed as not eligible because he is eligible. Just for anybody like paying attention when our list comes out and he's on Baseball America and the other ones. I mean, traditionally we look at like rookie status. So for hitters it's 130 at bats. For pitchers it's 50 innings pitched or 45 days spent on the active roster. He's done none of those three things. He won't be on for long. He won't be on our midseason. But he'll definitely be on our preseason. So I just think it's like a little bit weird that that he wasn't on this one. He still has Gonzalez up at 5, which look, I think most people will have him 5, 6, 7, 8, something in there. He seems to be the low guy on Nastrini. And then he has Leisure all the way up at 9 and Baroa at 12. So, I mean, look, that might be the explanation there for your first question. Like, how does he have the depth at 26th or whatever? Well, when you have definite relievers at 9 and 12 in the system, even if they're great, that's it's not very good. You kind of want relievers toward the back of your list when you can.
Yeah, and he's got Spees at 18 as well. So, I mean, it's just got, and there's also been thoughts by some of the, national coverage guys that have said that Nick Nastrini could even possibly end up in a bullpen role as well. So, I could see how he would come up with that if you think that those couple of guys are that far up in the rankings, I could see how that would end up that way.
Well, it seems like the guy that could pop that like we might not even see right away is Grant Taylor. I feel like people are being very conservative with him, but then anything written about him is super positive, if that makes sense. Like it's kind of like, oh, we're gonna put him at 15, but he would have been a top 20 pick if he were healthy and he was great before. So who knows, right? So that's like one of those things where it's just, all of a sudden he's like 5 or 6 at midseason. Like nobody should be surprised. I don't know how soon he's going to pitch though. I'm not really sure on his timeline.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard a word about him at all as far as a health health timeline goes. Yeah, I'd say that pretty much everything else is not really that far out of whack. I kind of felt like Leisure and Baroa were a little bit higher than I would have thought, but that's why we have different people making different lists. So moving on to Keith Law over at The Athletic, he says that the White Sox have a farm system ranked at number 10. So he is significantly higher, which to me, it's like Kiley McDaniel and Keith Law kind of swapped spots.
Yeah.
Because
it is
now, now you look and Keith Law has 5 White Sox in the top 100, which before, Kiley McDaniel was the one who was higher on White Sox prospects. So my head's kind of swimming when it comes to this whole thing. I'm not expecting Keith Law positivity on the White Sox ever.
Well, and the thing that I find interesting too is that Keith, I think, is pretty good on position players. I think he's had a lot of high profile misses on pitchers, and I think he would admit it. Like I think he knows. Like he looks for certain stuff in pitchers. He just wants big, strapping dudes that look the part, that have good deliveries, and that's pretty much what he ranks. I mean, he notoriously was super low on Sale, and he even talks about it occasionally. Like, look, he just would rather be wrong, and have a guy be great than, think that a guy's going to be good and, be wrong the opposite way. He's totally fine with being wrong, like if a guy ends up being awesome. So, but his hitter evals, I've always thought were pretty good. So having 3 of the top 70s pretty good, regardless of where he has Colson Montgomery, which has been a lot of questions for me this week from people.
Yes, and if you have not seen Keith Law's top 100, he has Colson Montgomery ranked at number 42. There are the normal questions of whether he's going to stick at shortstop, and obviously there was the health concerns last year, and the fact that when he finally did come back, there was a little less of the all fields approach. There was a little bit more of a pull happy type of approach, but when you start in high A, a level below where you start, where you finished the last year, I would assume that there's going to be a little bit of, there's not going to be a learning curve there. So he's just going to kind of go in there and murder it, and that's what he did. Your thoughts on that?
Well, and once again, I know you don't want to read like the whole proprietary thing, like on air, and like, I get it. Like everybody should subscribe to The Athletic because the content's awesome. But like if I were to not tell you where he ranked him and you were to read the write-up, Like, I think the write-up's pretty exciting. Like,
Yeah, not bad.
I read it and I'm like, okay, that sounds about right. Like, I don't really care where Keith ranked him because, like, if Colson Montgomery goes back to Double A and puts up a 900 OPS or whatever, like, Keith will have him in the top 15 at midseason. Like, I think he's one of the guys that, says that, he's got a better than 50% chance of staying at short, where a lot of people now have kind of said, oh, maybe it's third. He doesn't really care. He thinks he's going to hit regardless. So, I just think the write up was pretty promising because I think the things that you want to hear about are that, like the physical nature of the profile and the chances of staying at short, and both of those things I think were positive. So, I knew when I'm scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and I'm like, oh God, where is he? What's he gonna say? Like, right?
Yeah.
Because, but then I'm like, oh, you read it, and it actually like makes quite a bit of sense.
Yeah, it wasn't a negative write up at all. That was the strange thing, is that when you look at somebody that you're used to seeing in top 10 on most of the other lists, you look at this one and see him at 42, you just automatically assume that he's going to be down on him, and that didn't seem to be the case at all, which was nice.
Yeah, no, I think it was good. I think Keith saw him like a few times too, and he actually thought that I think he's seen him like a few times in the past where I've read the write ups, and he thought he was pretty good at short. I just think the injury kind of did hurt him a little bit in the field, so we'll see.
Yeah. So he has Edgar Caro at 67. One thing that he did cite as the reason why he has him, not that he has him bad, because when you look at all these guys, you can't really complain about any of them because he's got them in the top 100, and he's got 5 White Sox prospects in the top 100. So I'm not complaining by any means. Just the one thing that he did mention was that in Double A last year, Caro struggled with the power numbers. And you could certainly bring up the fact that the Angels skipped high A altogether and just moved him up to Trash City last year, which is just was kind of I was pretty shocked when I saw that he had just bumped straight through.
Well, so it's an Artie Moreno thing. Like he doesn't really care about the low minors. I mean, for anybody paying attention, like all of their draft picks lately have been college guys, and they send them right to Double A essentially, and then bring them to the big league. So they did the same thing with Caro. Caro hit, I think it was 17 homers the year before in low A, not even like high A. So they skipped him from low A to double. And look, he held his own. He had a 105 WRC plus in Double A. He just, he wasn't hitting for the power that he hit for. And look, like when you're the White Sox, like it's weird, right? If you trade for him, we had this debate on this show, with me and Mike and some others. Like, like when they acquired him, I didn't know if they'd send him to Winston or not. And I don't know. Like, I don't know if you can't do that because of like the psyche of a guy that you're telling is going to be your catcher of the future, right? But, they kind of left him at double. The one thing I would do now, though, is I would leave him in Double A with Birmingham. I really hope that happens. I think it will, just because of like seeing the way this roster is very likely to shake out with Corey Lee and Hackenberg and Perez probably all in Charlotte. Caro should go to Double A until he forces his way to Triple, and then you kind of clear some of those other guys out. But I think the big thing with Caro and like looking at other people's rankings, tell me if like you think this makes sense. Like if you think he can catch, like for sure, like I think he's probably a top 100 guy because he's a switch hitter, controls the strike zone regardless of like where or how much power he has. It's really a question of whether or not he can catch. Now, if you think he's like a first baseman or he can't catch for sure, then yeah, then he's not, he might not even be a prospect at that point, but so a lot of it does hinge on him catching and whether the evaluator thinks that that's like something that he's going to remain doing.
Yeah, that's especially a thing when you look at Caro and you try and project his power, and you think that it's probably going to be somewhere between 15 and 22 home runs, somewhere around there, if in the major leagues, at any point in time. Also, there's been thoughts that maybe he put on a little bit too much weight last year, and that was kind of hindering his, defense behind the plate, which is also a thing to consider. So, I mean, also another thing to mention about the Angels is Nolan Schanuel was drafted last year, had something like 35 at bats in the minor leagues, and then was taking at bats with the Angels big league club in a playoff run, nonetheless.
And Zach Neto did the same thing the year before.
So bizarre. It's 904 says Birmingham likely curbs his power numbers as well, but
yeah, it's not great.
Going to Truist, absolutely.
So he did only, I think he only hit 5 in Double-A with the Angels too, though, I believe, right?
Yeah.
I think it was something similar. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he struggled and played most of the year with Trash City, and then he came over to Birmingham and actually had a spike in power production. So it might be just kind of one of those things where he was kind of feeling a little bit of pressure getting bumped up that quickly and trying to do too much with
and that's like thanks for the note there, but I mean that it's like two ends of the spectrum with, and we'll get into that a ton this year, like on the show, but like Birmingham to Charlotte, it's like one of them, like you're talking about like all the power being suppressed at a park, and then in the other park you might as well be playing in the Pacific Coast League. So it's absolutely staggering, like the difference between those two places.
Yep. So Ramos comes in at 69.
Nice.
He did mention with Ramos that the abdominal issue that he had last year, or was it a lat? I can't remember. I think it was abdominal. I'd have to go back and look at notes, but that is something in particular that Ramos might need to really maintain due to the fact that the torque that he puts on his torso when he swings a bat is massive. So, any thoughts on Ramos's placement there?
No, I just like seeing him like on some of these lists. I mean, it's good. He's a top 70 prospect in baseball from Keith Law. Like that's a guy that he thinks is a regular. So, because he doesn't rank utility guys and guys that he likes. Like these are, Keith Law's always kind of gone for upside. His list is very different than other lists. I think other outlets really, they're consensus builders in like a lot of places, and they reach out to teams and they kind of think, hey, what does this look like how does this look, type of thing. And Keith doesn't really do that. I mean, he obviously has sources and he talks to scouts and stuff, but he's not, I don't think, sending his list to the clubs to see what they think about it, whereas some other outlets, that's a lot of what they do.
Yeah, I would agree. I like the fact that he goes and compiles his own list and pretty much probably doesn't ask too many people much of anything other than asking a couple of scouts, hey, dude, what do you think about this one particular tool? But then he goes and does all this stuff himself, which I do appreciate. Coming in at 76, we have a guy that we're not used to seeing on these lists. Nick Nastrini comes in, says that there is a issue with his deception, just for the fact of his mechanics. He says that there is a possibility, due to not having that plus fastball getting up in the zone, the possibility that he might become Lance Lynn of 2023 and give up a ton of home runs. And says that there's also a possibility of the bullpen. Your feelings on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he can start because, it's 3 pitches. It's probably a plus change and a plus slider he puts in his write-up. So, I mean, it's fastball command, right? I mean, Nick Nastrini's gone periods of time where he's walked 5 or 6 guys per 9. That's clearly not going to work. But it's not like it's a third pitch issue, right? Like usually your guys that end up being in the bullpen, it's because of that third pitch, they just can't figure it out. It's like Michael Kopech, right? Like with him, he's got 3 pitches. He's got to throw strikes. So I think this is one of those times where, look, and I know people have like gotten on me this year because I said like, oh, I trust the White Sox, which is stupid. But in this particular case with pitchers, like I trust Brian Bannister is what I would say. So, so we'll see there if they can just fix some of the issues with repeatability and some of his wildness. And yeah, I mean, you're looking at probably like a mid-rotation starter because it's really, really good stuff.
Yeah, the thing about I mean, the Bannister thing is so promising, seeing what he did over in San Francisco. And, there are certain things with certain pitchers that, if he can manage to, say, get some of those guys to do some of the things that they were doing before, some of the Jared Schusters and, stuff that's going on on the major league club. If he can manage to kind of harness those things and get those things all headed back in the right direction, I can only imagine what he's going to be able to do with a guy that's like Nastrini, which I've said that if nothing else, even if Nastrini doesn't manage to become, a top-of-the-line starter, mid-rotation starter, back five, nothing else, he's going to be a great coach because that guy is super into analytics and into pitch shaping and working in the pitch lab. And it's, listening to him talk about his romance with pitching is something else. It's pretty awesome. Coming in at 79. Oh, you got something else?
Well, no, just like we have an interview with him with Elijah from last year that was pretty good. And, he was in that Dodger pitching factory, man. Like, I cover the draft pretty extensively, and I don't even remember him at UCLA. And it's just your typical Dodgers fourth-round college guy that they turn into a guy good enough to trade for something that they need. So it's just they do it every year.
They do. They are an impressive organization when it comes to dealing with the farm system. Coming in at number 79, Noah Schultz. Again, cited health and pen questions. And I've also heard things about, his, mechanics being a little bit maybe not repeatable. But the thing that when I look at him, he looks fluid and looks like he's got his stuff together. So your feelings on the placement there?
Yeah, so it's just kind of what we talked about earlier with Keith, right? Like, I'm actually kind of surprised that he ranked him personally, just because of like his history. Like, he'd rather be wrong, right? Than like he'd rather just say, yeah, like I didn't trust like because he falls back on like a lot of normed based like stuff, right? So like guys 6'9" or taller like aren't usually that successful. Now, he doesn't look like a 6'9" guy on the mound when he's pitching. He really doesn't. Like, the extension's insane, and he looks like a more fluid like 6'6" lefty when he's actually pitching. Like, he's imposing, but he doesn't look unorthodox when he's doing it. Keith does write that, you can see the number one starter upside or even top end reliever potential. But like we talked about with Noah, it's 27 innings so far. So, if he gets up to 70 innings, it's going to be a pretty exciting season, I think, for Noah Schultz. But it's all about that innings load. He's a definite top 100 everywhere. I think this is the lowest anybody has him. But the write-up's fine. Like, nobody should be concerned over like where he's actually ranked. Just the fact that he burst onto the scene like he did is it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's over the moon with the production that they saw out of him last year. It's just the fact that there was only 27 innings of it. So
yeah,
the fact that he's in the top 100, all good.
How about that high school pitching class? Like, Noah Schultz, Jackson Ferris, Robbie Snelling with the Padres, and Dylan Lesko with the Padres. All four of them went, like top 50 or so. And they're all on top 100 lists. Like, they're all pretty good. And look, it's the riskiest demographic that there is, right? Yeah. And not so much from the left side, but high school righties. I mean, you've seen it. Like, it's a pretty low hit rate. But there's four good ones from that class from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty much one of those things that if teams go in and find out who Vanderbilt's looking after, yeah, that's the guy that you want to draft, and you go ahead and draft him, and they're generally going to be pretty good. They might not, ascend all the way to Major League Baseball, and when it comes to the end of things, but they're all generally pretty talented.
Yeah, they were supposed to have Schultz and Lesko, I think, right?
Yes, yeah, I think that's the two.
Yeah,
I'd have to look again, but I think that's the commits.
Yeah. That's a rough night for Corbin, I bet, man. That's that's brutal.
Not so happy.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the James Fox 2024 mock draft v1.0. Do you just want to hop straight to pick number 5? Or do you want to try and play the
Yeah,
lottery and pick number 1 through 4.
Yeah, I don't want to give it all away, but I mean, look, it's super early, so I'm going to preface all of this with that. Like the college season just started. I think if you kind of look on MLB Pipeline and Baseball America and everybody else that ranks players, they all have kind of some of the same guys. I will say it's a pretty college heavy class. Like at the top, like as of now, it's not teaming with prep talent like some of the past years. Um, so that's something that's could be good or bad, just kind of depending on the way that you look at things. I feel like some people would rather be safe and take a college guy, but to me, like I want the highest upside prep guy I can get. So, in my first mock, I went Connor Griffin, who's a center fielder out of Jackson Prep in Mississippi. He's 6'4", 205-pound outfielder. He can definitely stay in center field. He reclassified from 2025 or from the 2025 class, so he's super young. So, just like toolsy center fielder, hits right-handed. That's the way I chose to go. I know that the White Sox have been in to see him. It would be Warren Hughes again, Ian. I put that in my article.
That's their guy.
Warren got 4 of the first 5 picks last year. I think it was more coincidence than anything, but he's down in that Mississippi, Louisiana area. So he would get another one here if I'm correct a few months from now.
Yeah, and just for people that don't know much about him, this guy plays center field. He can also play third base, shortstop. He pitches right-handed. He's got up to a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. He throws from center field. He's been gunned at like 97 out of center field, throwing back into the infield. He hits tanks. He's fast. Dude's big and strong. This would be pretty much if he's available, I would hope that would be kind of the way that they would go, unless he absolutely tanks this season, which I seriously doubt.
Well, and I know like people are like again with the trusting of the White Sox thing, right? But like if Mike Shirley wants to take a high school guy, I think I'm going to let him at this point, like based on the two guys that we've been kind of talking about all night, right? And Colson Montgomery and Noah Schultz. Spill all the beans. I don't have all the beans. I know that they've been in to see him, but that's kind of it. I mean, everything I know I put in the article. It really is a long time from now, and money matters and all that. The other thing that I'll say is, and this isn't like breaking news, if you look at this class, one of the best players is a power hitting first baseman. He's getting Jim Thome comps, Ian.
No.
Nick Kurtz. I know. Like we're comparing guys to Hall of Famers again.
And we've already talked about this Wake Forest thing. No.
Yes, we have. 39 pumps in 2 seasons. He'll probably hit 20 some more. You don't want to take a first baseman that high. But even like the top 2 guys might be big league second basemen. And look, J.J. Weatherhold of West Virginia can really, really hit, and he's going to play short this year. But like a lot of people think that's a big league second baseman. Same thing with Travis Bezzana. It's kind of the same profile. Another lefty hitter who was great on the Cape. He's going to hit, but it's just second base that high is just not something that I'm particularly interested in.
I'd say probably the only way Bezzana would be drafted by the White Sox if he's still available is if Liam Hendricks is in the draft room.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I personally really enjoy his game, and, I've seen some stuff that he's done analytically for his college teammates, and it's awesome. And his prep work is insane, and his fundamentals are fantastic. But I don't know. It's a I don't know that position, that same thing again. I don't.
They can't. You can't scout the uniform, Ian, but they can't go Oregon State again. I don't think they could do it. Like.
Yeah, it's too risky, and I don't know if the power is going to translate. I know he's done well in the Cape Cod, but I mean it's still, it's I'm scared. I'm a little bit hurt still.
I don't think the White Sox would be afraid to go pitching. And this typically happens like in college baseball, right? Like if you look right now, like your top pitcher, is Chase Burns of Wake Forest. but even there's like a lot of reliever risk there. And there's some other guys that are projected in like the teens. A couple of those guys are going to be like top 10 guys, like they just are. It's the way the college baseball season goes. There'll be some guys that you're not really thinking of. Like Paul Skeens was not projected to be the number one pick last year at this time. So somebody will take off. This will look a lot different. We'll have you covered. It's just, it's February. It is super, super early.
Yeah, the number one pick that everybody thought was going to be last year, number one college pitcher, is Chase Dollander, Dolander, who the White Sox had his brother, Hunter, in their minor league system. I don't know if he's still with us this year or not. I haven't looked, but I think he is, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, and Chase Dolander ended up the third pitcher off the board, going 9th to Colorado. So, it's just
solid pick.
Yeah.
Lucky to get that one back there. So moving along, the White Sox announced a couple of international signings. One who was already known about, Alexander Viezo out of Venezuela, but they also announced Orlando Suarez and a new name that I had not heard, which is shortstop out of Venezuela as well, which I'm going to butcher this pronunciation. I'm a stickler about the pronunciations of these names, but Yoangel Suarez, that's as close as I think I'm going to come until I hear something else about Javier Mogollon, Mogollon.
Mogollon, yeah.
But that's have you heard anything on these guys at all?
So Orlando Suarez, yes. Like a couple of weeks ago, Ben Badler posted him as like one of the sleepers of the White Sox class. So I think do you have his amounts like over 300K, right? It was something like that.
Yeah, I thought it was 350, yeah.
Yeah, 350. So yeah, so my guess is that's the top pitcher in their class. So just like a point of reference there, like Christian Mena, a guy who a lot of people didn't really want to see the White Sox trade, signed for 250K out of the Dominican like some years back. So like you could really get impact with pitching for low dollar amounts because they signed for cheap because of when they agree to these deals. Like they're just underdeveloped and then they kind of turn into big monsters sometimes. And this guy, I think, I don't have the Badler right up in front of me, but it's mid 90s. He's really kind of taken off a little bit. So, once the White Sox announce all the signings, I will write something about all these guys, but I'd prefer to have like actual Marco Patti quotes like about some of them and why they wanted to sign some of these players. So I'm not just like regurgitating scouting reports, but yeah, I think he's probably the interesting one of the group, but they've had some low dollar hits the last couple years.
Yeah, it was 25K off. It is 375K. So
okay, yeah.
The other Suarez was 80K, and then Valdivieso was 100K.
Yeah.
So
yeah, added to their. So I think they've announced 7 signings so far. Eduardo Herrera, the big one, obviously for 1.8 million. There was another Venezuelan power hitter, Jesus Primoli, was like 550. And then the 2 guys from Curacao, one of them, Jurickson Profar's younger brother, was like 700K. So apparently there's more signings. Francis Romero, great Dominican reporter, awesome follow. He, is the one that broke like the bonus amounts on some of these. He's under the impression that they have a few signings coming from the Dominican Republic, so we'll see how quickly that gets announced. And then the other Venezuelan signings, who we know the names from Ben Badler at Baseball America, those should be any day this week too. So, hopefully they get at least the first part of this class announced and actually like talk about some of these guys because they're going to be playing in the Dominican Summer League pretty soon.
Yeah, that's always the adventure. You find out that they get signed, and they're already suited up in the Dominican League. They announce it like a day before the first pitch over there. Super aggravating. So let's move over to the Major League Club. We've spent this entire time talking about prospect stuff. We still will be, sort of, because we are going to talk about the NRI list that just came out. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up here in 1 second. Anything surprising to you? I know that they invited a bunch of guys that are not on the 40-man to come up.
Yeah.
Do you want to start there?
Yeah, so I'm not really surprised by any of like the prospect names. The one thing I want to point out that I always point out because I always get questions on it. So anybody on the 40-man is in big league spring training. I know for Ian, probably you and I, like we kind of know that, but I think people kind of take it for granted. Like I heard, hey, where's Jake Eater? Jake Eater's on the 40-man, so they don't have to announce him, as somebody that they've invited to spring training because he's on the, Brian Ramos, Jose Rodriguez, those guys. Those guys will all be there in addition to the guys that Ian has kind of up on the screen. I will say some of these NRIs, some of these NRIs, they've been leaking out kind of weekly where we'd mention on this show or other White Sox blogger podcasters would be like, oh, they signed this guy, weeks ago or so. But, they've all been kind of announced by the team. So.
Yeah, so I just managed to get them up after you just got through all that stuff.
That's.
So we got Jonathan Cannon, Jordan Leisure, Nick Nastrini, Edgar Navarro, Nick Padilla, and Lane Ramsey. Left-handed pitchers, we got Kai Bush and Fraser Ellard, one of my personal favorites. Adam Hackenberg, Carlos Perez, and Edgar Caro. And Tim Elko coming up, the big man. Colson Montgomery and Zach Remillard. I know Tim Elko, Beef's a big fan of Tim Elko and really he wants him to play in Charlotte all this year because he's hoping to see him hit 50 home runs in Charlotte, which would be hilarious. But I could stand seeing him do a little bit of that up with the White Sox personally. But that's the
what number will be higher, the number of home runs in Charlotte or the K rate in Charlotte?
Because
even in Birmingham, it's 35% in Birmingham.
Yeah, and see, here's the thing, and I know that's been one thing that a lot of people have talked about, but if you have listened to interviews with him, he says that he doesn't want to take Ks, or he doesn't want to take walks because he feels that he's up there to do damage. So he's up there trying to put a hurt on the ball. And if that's the case, I'm there for it. I would love to see him go out there and put a hurt on the ball. And I can take the low walk thing. I think that there's going to be a little bit rework of the approach there, but I think he's got a pretty good bat to ball skill. So I don't think that it was the fact that he was just way overmatched when he went to Birmingham. I think, it being his first full season and playing so many games, and meanwhile also starting to try and crush the ball all the time, that's probably part of the equation there.
Yeah, and he played 3 levels, right? Didn't they start him in Canny?
Yep.
And it was A-ball was no match for Tim Elko. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, he stopped playing there in June, I want to say, and the end of the year he was tied for home runs in A-ball still. So, that guy's got some nice power there. So moving to the other free agents that signed, you've got Justin Anderson, Joe Barlow, Jake Cousins, Chad Kuhl, and Jake Woodford. And you've got Chucky Robinson, which that one totally caught me out of left field. I was not expecting a Chucky Robinson signing. We also have a Danny Mendick sighting. He is back with the White Sox organization. Rafael Ortega, Mark Payton, Brett Phillips, and Kevin Pillar.
Yeah. So I have an article about this up on the site. So there's a name that I think is definitely making the team that's not on this list, and that's Jesse Chavez. They announced it after they announced these.
True.
Jesse Chavez is 40.
He won this season?
Maybe, yeah. He was really good in Atlanta last year, like really good. And the White Sox bullpen is really bad. So, I think he's probably on the team if he wants to be, is my guess. And then, I think with the way Kevin Pillar has been talked about, he seems like the obvious 4th outfielder and platoon partner for Dominic Fletcher in right field. So I think those two are definitely on the team. And then who knows? Like Joe Barlow, I think has a chance. Like after some, he pitched well in Texas in the past, but there's a lot of bullpen arms. So, and there's not a ton of 40-man space. So I think he's an option, but not super confident. And then Danny Mendick. I mean, I think Danny Mendick would only sign here, if he thought he had a chance at the utility job. And I think he would be in contention for that with Zach Remillard and, guys that are already on the 40-man. Jose Rodriguez, Lenny Sosa, Braden Shoemake, guys like that. But, they're all right-handed hitters, and Nicky Lopez is a lefty, kind of like we talked about earlier. So I would say Danny Mendick probably has a shot as well.
Yeah, I agree. I like that they brought Danny Mendick back. I thought that he had he had a rough year last year with the Mets, and I don't think he was fully healthy during the season. And I know that he also played sporadically. Me and my kids saw him when they were playing the Royals, and he had a great game when we were down there. It must have just been the White Sox mojo, but we'll see.
He had a typical season for Syracuse, though.
Yeah, his AAA
like
line
he was fine. He was good,
Yep.
Right? Yeah, like just like he's always kind of been.
Yep.
And I didn't realize. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I didn't realize like how good his numbers were in 2022, the year he got hurt.
Very good. Yep.
Like, and I know he was like on a little bit of a tear. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if he does that, because really, I know we're talking platoons, but I mean, if you only played him against lefties, I mean, he can hit left-handed pitching. So, if you don't overexpose him and Nicky Lopez holds his own, it might be the best production they've had at second base in a while.
Man, that hurts.
Brutal, I know. Yeah.
So here's somebody that is not on these, not on this tweet here, but on the 40-man that you and I have talked about a little bit is Garrett Crochet.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, there's Grimtall. Thanks for the resubscribe. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I thought Tim Anderson just signed somewhere when I saw him up here. Like,
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Still asking for that starting shortstop money, $25 million a year.
Well, I mean, the Marlins made a trade for Tom Gordon's kid instead, so he must be asking for real money still.
Yeah, either that or just everybody's kind of over it. I don't know. We'll see when the season starts. See if he manages to get an NRI at this point. That would be something right there to see him go all the way down to that.
Do you think anybody saw Yasmani Grandal signing before Tim Anderson did?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Did he sign with Pittsburgh? Is that what ended up happening?
Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
my. Oof. I mean, they've got a couple of guys over there in Pittsburgh. It's not a foregone conclusion that he's even going to be good enough to make that team either.
Right, and I think the one catcher's out for the year, but Davis is catching, I think. Henry Davis is. But so he doesn't have to change his Twitter handle. Yeah. Well,
it's possible.
Yeah.
No longer TA7.
Yeah, so they have I don't remember that other, but yeah, they have like two catching prospects. One of them got hurt in like Winter League, I think.
Oh yeah, that's right. I
yeah,
forgot about
right.
That. He's got like a torn UCL, right?
Yeah, he's done for the year. But Henry Davis is there, and I think will be catching. So
yeah,
who knows? Maybe it's a lot of DH and first base time for Yaz.
I mean, I'd like to see him do well. I just don't think he's gonna.
I love that city. I'll probably see him. So.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I'll make my way to PNC for sure if I can. I want to, but there's other places I still need to hit over there. So I don't know. We'll see. So one of the guys that we were talking about now, Garrett Crochet. What on earth was so? Chris Getz had a little presser today. And I don't have the quote up in front of me, but you want to go ahead and give the gist of what the Garrett Crochet stuff is about?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I tweeted earlier that Chris Getz is lying because he's lying about something. Like, they want to honor. So he goes into the whole thing where they want to like honor Garrett Crochet's wishes of starting, which, like, I actually kind of agree with. Like, let's take a look and see. But then he said, like, the expectation is that Garrett Crochet will make the club, like the White Sox club. which doesn't make any sense, Ian. Like I don't like it's one or the other. Like either he's going into your bullpen in a high leverage role of some sort, whatever, and he's going to be on the White Sox, or he's going to be starting and it's got to be in the minors. I don't understand what they're talking about. I don't know if Getz was caught off guard, if he doesn't understand, if he's lying or what, on purpose. I don't get it. I don't understand at all. So I don't know what the best course of action is. I've long been somebody who has said like, screw it, like let him start if he wants to, but that has to be done in the minor leagues if they're going to do it.
Absolutely. If he is going to be combative about it, which I don't know if he is, I'm just throwing this out there. If he wants to be combative about it, that I'm a starter, that's fine. You can do that, but you're not going to be doing it with the major league club because we have multiple other guys that have innings bases that have better pitch command, better pitch selection. I don't know. To me, it just seems like a foregone conclusion that either he's a reliever with the White Sox or he's starting in the minor leagues. There's no
Right.
in between there.
Well, and I think you could make like the value argument, like if the White Sox were to turn Garrett Crochet into their closer, to trade him at midseason, right? For like some turbo like return or something. Like I get that, but like I don't think just sticking him in the bullpen is necessarily the best thing for his career. And I don't think that it's what he would think either, right? Like if somebody out there thinks Garrett Crochet can start, I mean, I'm pretty sure he's going to want to start. I mean, there's more money involved in starting. Like even if he's like a back end starter, and it's just, and also like the 13 pitcher rule basically makes it impossible for you to like keep him in some sort of like role where he's piggybacking every however many days. Like you can't do it, and you don't have enough pitchers with options. Like it's just it's crazy. He needs to be like starting in Birmingham if he's a starter.
That first month of Garrett Crochet was electric. And I love the leg kick. I love the flare. I think it's awesome. But I have said over and over and over again, 96 mile an hour Garrett Crochet is not good enough for him as a starter, probably, because he doesn't have the pitch mix. And 96 mile an hour Garrett Crochet is not going to get it done as a closer either. He needs something else. Something needs to change. He needs to either get some of that velocity back, or if you're going to keep that velocity, you're going to have to build an innings base. That's the only way he's going to be able to get back to being useful, in my opinion.
Right. No, I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, he's fastball slider, right? If he goes into the rotation, he's going to have to at least try to throw the third pitch. If he's in the bullpen, he's going to be fastball slider. And if the fastball's not 100, I just don't know that his stuff is good enough to, pitch in high leverage role. So completely understand. Look, Mike Shirley thought he was drafting a starter. It's not his fault that they just like saw what they saw in Schaumburg and hiked him up to the major league team. And look, I don't even really blame them for that in 2020.
Yeah, no.
I blame them big time for 2021 though. When Tony La Russa gets, sees this kid and he's like, oh, I need him to be my loogie essentially. Like that's where it went wrong. That kid should have been in the minor leagues, starting, but not necessarily, even if it was like a multi-inning role, right? Like having him out of the big league bullpen in his first full season, going one inning at a time, was the worst possible thing that they could do. But, when Tony La Russa's running your organization, those are the types of decisions that are made.
Yeah, it kind of gives me those coming back from TJ Zach Birdie vibes, where there's just there's not movement on the fastball and the velocity's not where it was before. So he still thinks that he can get away with the things that he could get away with when he was throwing 101, and it's just not happening, with a 96 mile an hour fastball, especially if you're not locating, with that teacup fastball that Grim mentioned earlier. So do you have anything else this week? Anything that you want to bring up? Anything important?
No, nothing pressing. I mean, we're gonna get all the quotes about best shape of their life guys and stuff. I can't wait. It's spring training. I notoriously hate spring training. I don't like fake sports. Like I hate preseason football too. It's just I don't know. But I know spring training is necessary. I just after about a week I'm kind of done. I'll do the prospect stuff and doing this show, but big league spring training, the players hate it. There's none of it really matters that much. Just don't get hurt. That's the biggest thing. Don't get hurt.
Yeah, I'm fine with the big league guys hating it. They can go away because
Yeah.
I'll watch.
Yeah.
The pitching. They want to get the pitching ready. Go ahead and bring the top of the line pitching out. We'll send our prospects out there, and I want to see them get at bats against top of the line pitching, even if it's in Arizona where the ball doesn't move, and where the ball goes 100 miles. I'd still like to at least be able to see that part of the equation there.
Yeah. What's your biggest spring training battle right now that you're focused on, Ian? The bullpen battle with 50 names. Alex Spees throwing 102. So
I mean, I do want to see that, and I want to see how. More importantly, I want to see how his command is. I want to see how Prelander Baroa's command is. I want to see how Jordan Leisure handles it. Granted, he was just in the Arizona Fall League, and he had a 50% strikeout rate. So clearly, he has Arizona. And he's doing okay. He's figured that whole thing out. But I want to see the other guys and see how the command goes. And we'll see. We'll see. I
don't think so. Yeah.
Oh, let him start and get a year of control.
Was the question about Nick Nastrini?
Yeah, Nick Pastrami.
Pastrami,
is he gonna make the team?
So I kind of think all the prospects are going to start in Charlotte, even the relief prospects, like Leisure, Baroa, because I just think there's so many vets that they'll just have on the opening day roster that you could just discard quickly if they're bad, that they'll just kind of not screw around with it. Nastrini could be in the rotation, but they need Chris Flexen to start, just those types of little things where guys are just going to be there and pitching and playing. So yeah, it's I saw today Scott Merkin had his first mock opening day lineup or opening day roster, and I'm sure others will come out with it. Just a couple of small things, guys like Jimmy Lambert and Davey Garcia, both out of options. I always like to look at the guys with options because you got a Rule 5 guy on this team. So it kind of just maybe could help formulate your thoughts and opinions on who makes the team right out of the gate.
Yeah, I would like them to be able to keep Davey Garcia as well. It's got some really nasty stuff, but I think that it's just one of those things that you have to limit exposure into the right spots and all that stuff until he kind of gets himself comfortable. Now, Leisure.
Alex Spiza, guys, he's got two options.
Yeah, see now, him and Baroa, those guys I could see starting in AAA. I would be surprised if Leisure starts in AAA. But, I mean, stranger things have happened, and I don't know if I could handle a start of a major league season without Chris Flexen starts, so I see where you're coming from there. FutureSox.net. James has got a bunch of content that he puts up out there, including coming up soon is it out already? The mock draft. Did we put that one out?
7 o'clock Tuesday morning.
All right, Tuesday morning. That one's coming out. So tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Tomorrow morning. And then in a week and a half, we'll also have our top 30s hopefully coming out. We also, later on tonight, there'll be, actually tomorrow morning, there'll be another podcast. The Roundup will be coming out as well. So there's a bunch of stuff going on over there. My name is Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox. He's James Fox, James Fox 917. FutureSox, at FutureSox on the Twitter. Head over. You can support us on Patreon if you feel like it. Also, you can find this in audio-only form. You can also find it in video form if you are so inclined on our YouTube channel. Please go and check that out, subscribe, and tell your friends about it. We'd appreciate that. You can find this podcast anywhere you like to get your podcast from. We thank you guys so much for coming and watching tonight and hanging out. If you have any questions, feel free to hop in the chat any time we're streaming and go ahead and shoot those questions over. We appreciate you guys. You guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you guys